Let's talk about porn. Porn has been detrimental to many people's mental health, but young men in particular, and it doesn't take a neuroscientist to understand why. Or maybe a little bit, but we'll get into that later down the line. So join me as we embark on this journey of self-discovery, addiction, perversion, and lots of lotion. Full disclaimer, I will be talking primarily about my experiences as a 20-year-old man. I don't represent all the young men out there, and I certainly don't feel comfortable speaking on women's behalf. That being said, though, kick back, grab a hot or cold beverage of your choice, and lots of tissues because we're about to get sticky. Part 1. The bad side of porn. So I personally got into porn at quite a young age. I'd guess I was about 11 years old. It could be sooner, it could be later. Either way, it's pretty goddamn young. I'd seen people fucking in HD before even having my first kiss. Previous generations would have been shocked, if not traumatized, if they were to witness such things at that age. But this generation's a little different. You see, previously, back in the day, you'd have to actually get out of your way to come across porn. You'd have to go and buy a magazine, rent a VHS tape, or go to one of them disgusting movie theaters where you jack off in the corner. Now, nowadays, you just go into our incognito mode and you look up titties on Google. Now, when we look up titties on Google, it does a few things to our dumb, developing prepubescent brains. First off, there's dopamine addiction. Dopamine is a chemical that gets released into your brain whenever you do something rewarding. Let's say you go for a run, you have sex, or you eat some food that you enjoy. It's a chemical that's responsible for the happy feeling you get when you dig into a greasy burger or you bust a fat nut. But the thing is, you build up a tolerance for it. Another example of this would be smoking cigarettes. When you first start smoking, you get a nicotine buzz only a few puffs in. However, if you continue this habit, you'll start smoking more and more and more to feel that same buzz until you eventually don't feel the buzz anymore, but you're smoking half a pack a day, like yours truly, just to satiate that thirst. We all know how harmful cigarettes can be to our physical health, so most people very logically stay away from that stuff. Porn is kind of similar to it, but instead of just affecting our physical health, it affects our mental health and our view of women and sex. For me, it started off with the aforementioned Google image search of women with big titties. But then I slowly started dipping my toes into more advanced stuff. I started to look up girls kissing in the YouTube search bar. But after a while, two girls kissing on YouTube just doesn't cut it anymore. So you progress into more and more hardcore shit until you're eventually a 14-year-old looking up bukkake cumshot compilations on X videos. Yikes. See, what happened here is that I built up my dopamine tolerance, which in turn led to desensitization. When I first embarked on this journey, it was for all intents and purposes quite innocent. I just wanted to see some big fucking titties. And whenever my porn provider of choice would show me something more extreme, let's say a gaped asshole for example, I'd be repulsed. I'd react in shock and think to myself, no way I'll ever jack off to this stuff, this is just gross. But only a few years later, I'd find myself looking up the very thing I initially rejected. And this is what desensitization is. Overexposure to graphic, extreme, or obscene imagery, which will lead to you reacting in less shock or distress, and maybe even seeking it out. And the combination of this desensitization and dopamine tolerance buildup is some serious fucking business. Do not underestimate it. Some studies suggest that excessive porn consumption can lead to performance issues in the bedroom. And get this, it doesn't appear to be a psychological issue, but rather a physiological one. In a nutshell, what happens to excessive consumers of porn is that they overstimulate their brain's natural dopamine limits. We've observed from animal subjects that both sexual desire and erections arise from dopamine signals. And when you overstimulate your brain with this, you're gonna need more of the lovely chemical to get your dick hard. So, when you're so used to seeing women ball-gagged and handcuffed in elaborate BDSM contraptions, seeing a naked girl in your bed just isn't going to be enough for your brain to send a signal to your dick to get it up and perform. Another study showed that porn can reinforce sexist and sometimes even hostile behavior towards women for a select group of men. Granted, this group of men was low in agreeableness. And agreeableness is one of the 5 components that many psychologists believe make up one's personality. Being low in agreeableness means that an individual can hold higher levels of antagonism, self-interest, unfriendliness, hostility, and suspiciousness. And while this study seems to be pretty damning, I cannot continue without mentioning that The scholars are divided on this topic. For every study that I found that porn can lead to sexual assault, there was another debunking this notion and another 20 that were inconclusive. The truth of the matter is there simply hasn't been enough research yet. But that won't stop me from doing my own little research and survey and giving you my personal thoughts. I made myself a coffee and a grilled cheese sandwich, but in the time that I was waiting for the grilled cheese, I already drank my coffee, so I made myself another one. Cheers. I asked a bunch of guys I know to fill in a survey about how porn has influenced their view on women. I won't get into all the questions, and about 20 people filled in the survey, so it's not very scientific, and I implore you to take this with a grain of salt.
To start off, I asked the guys, at what age did you start watching porn and how often do you watch porn? But then I proceeded to some more subtle questions. This question being, have you ever fantasized about a porn scenario, such as a MILF or a teacher or, I don't know, a stepsister or something like that? To nobody's surprise, the answer to that question was yes 100% of the time. But when the final question popped up, has porn influenced your view on women? The answer wasn't yes 100% of the time. I thought this was a little contradictory because if you fantasize about fucking your teacher in the classroom during detention, surely porn must have at least slightly contributed to that, right? Fortunately, though, most guys were sensible enough to acknowledge the fact that porn may have made them see women in a more objectified and overly sexualized light.
But I think this statement becomes especially true when you look at the first two questions. At what age did you start watching porn, and how often do you watch porn? 58.8% of the guys admitted to start watching porn between the ages of 10 and 14, and another 35.3% said to start watching porn between the ages of 15 to 18. These are young, dumb kids we're talking about. As to how often they watch porn, about 53% of the guys said they watch it multiple times a week. So when I was a dumb, developing 13-year-old with raging hormones who was horny all the time, I got recommended a bunch of political videos on YouTube. I think we all know the ones I'm talking about. Those videos really shaped my worldviews and political ideas at the time. And the YouTube algorithm kept feeding me them, and I ate them up. So I ask you, at that age, when you're so vulnerable and so susceptible to a lot of ideas, don't you think that porn can have the same effect on a young brain? You be the judge. Part 2, the insidiousness of the porn industry. Alright, so you might be inclined to believe that I think porn is inherently bad, but this is not the case. I think the problem lies more so with the industry rather than the medium itself. I'm going to explain this to you, but you're going to have to humor me on this next part because it might be a bit of a reach. So in 1923, this guy called Sigmund Freud explained to us his theory of what a personality is made of in his book, The Id and the Ego. He suggested that it's made up of three parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is the most primal part of your brain. It runs purely on instinct and is focused only on survival and seeking pleasure. The ego is slightly more irrational and grounded in reality. Its job is to make sure that the id is kept in check and expressed in a way that is more socially acceptable and realistic to obtain. But make no mistake here, the ego is still seeking to maximize pleasure while minimizing pain and not getting in trouble doing so. Now, the superego is the moral compass that keeps both of these horny bastards in check. It tries to keep the id from doing stupid shit, and it asks the ego to not look in the lens of, is it realistic, obtainable to follow this impulse and not get into trouble, but more so look in the lens of, is it morally okay to follow this impulse?
But didn't you say a personality is made up of 5 components rather than 3?
Shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up! Humor me on this, okay? It's gonna make sense in a minute. I hear you thinking, what the hell does this have to do with porn? Glad you asked. The porn industry primarily targets our id, right? Most guys that I know don't jack off necessarily out of horniness, but more so out of being bored out of their minds and wanting that dopamine hit. And the id is the part of you that wants to seek pleasure all of the time, no matter the cost. And what's more pleasurable than literally just busting a nut? Huh? So what do? You go to the hub. So how does the ego react to this? Well, if I'm home alone, or if everyone's asleep and I got my headphones in, surely I won't get into trouble, and it's not that big of a deal.
But then the superego kicks in and tells you it's probably not the best idea to do this. It's morally fucked up. But the porn industry found an extremely clever way to trick the superego into thinking that it's okay to give in to these impulses. They put in a goddamn plot.
Such a simple little fucking trick, but it's so effective that it pisses me off. I mean, fucking think about it. It's no secret that the plot and the acting work gets the least amount of attention in porn, but it's just enough mental gymnastics to trick your subconscious and conscious and pre-conscious superego that it's okay that you're watching this because it has a plot, it has characters, and whatever the fuck. I mean, I know for damn sure I usually click a video that has a plot in it because I can't just get straight into the fucking banging. That would be barbaric, right? Right?
That is, unless I'm in a really freaky mood.
I'm horny. I want to jack off.
I know, bro. I know. Calm down.
Just gotta make
sure no one's home.
Hey, yo. Yo, what's up? What the fuck are you watching? Is that porn? Bro, seriously? Nah, bro, it's not like that. It has a plot, it has characters, everything. Character development and shit. Come. Give it a try. If you say so. I guess I can give it a shot.
15 minutes later.
What have I done? Not again, bro. Not again. I thought I was better than this. Now, don't get it twisted. This is not the end-all and be-all to one's personality. Freud received a lot of criticism on this theory because it was far too simple, unscientific, and it doesn't take into account the intricacies of the human spirit. And I agree. Also, he was a homophobic weirdo that wanted to bang his mom and tried to convince the whole world that they wanted to bang their mom as well. Do as you will with that information. But his contributions to psychology and psychoanalysis are undeniable, and I do think he was onto something here. Yeah, we're more complex than our id, ego, and superego, but we've all experienced our primal desires and also our moral voice of reason. We'd be animals if we were to run only on instinct, and we'd be gods or devils if we were to only run on our morals. What makes us human is our ability to balance our lizard brain with our moral voice of reason. Right, Dexter?
Part 3, Redemption.
Porn's not all bad, okay? It just depends on the way you use it. Yeah, you can get lost in the sauce and exhaust all of your dopamine supplies along the way, but you can also use it as a tool of self-discovery. I'm a firm believer of things not being inherently good or bad. They're just things. If you buy a kitchen knife, you can get home and unpack it and cut some meat, cut some veggies, make yourself and your family a wonderful meal. But you can also use it to harm yourself or others. It all depends on the way you use it. It's not inherently good, it's not inherently bad. It's just the thing. And porn is the same way. I don't want to tell you how to live your life, but my advice is that you use porn sparingly rather than using it as a crutch in times of extreme boredom or loneliness. Embrace porn for what it is. It's a tool for sexual discovery, nothing more, nothing less, and there's nothing wrong with it. Let me tell you, my relationship with porn is a very complex one. I'll have times where I use it in a healthy way, and sometimes I'm just a junkie who uses it to feel something. It's a constant struggle, And I'd be lying to you if I said that I'm in the exact headspace that I want to be in. But something that I try to be more conscious of these days is the type of porn that I consume. Because having a good grasp of the intentions behind the video can be the first step in breaking the vicious cycle of being a dopamine slave. Think about it the next time you mindlessly click on a video. Yeah, obviously the intention of porn is to get you off, but dig a little deeper. Think about the actors in the video, the production, and who is exactly responsible behind the scenes. Like, if I tell you to imagine what type of person is behind the masterpieces such as What Are You Doing, Step Bro, and the fake taxi videos, who do you see? Probably some nasty, perverted, sexist white guy in his 50s, right? And do you really think he has your best interests in mind? Do you really think that they want you to have some sort of sexual awakening after watching their videos? Fuck no. They just want to keep you hooked. They just want you to keep watching their videos, and they pull all the tricks to raise your dopamine tolerance so you become a junkie looking for the next big fix. And you're giving it to them. Try to support the independent creators out there. Maybe look for some more ethical porn studios. Two that I can name off the top of my head are Bellesa House Studios and Sex Art. They make really great films, and I would recommend it to anyone watching. Use porn to spice up things in the bedroom. Fuck it, make your own video, you know? Try to really use this shit to further your knowledge of yourself. To go with the Freudian theory again, the it is an essential part of you. It's like a third of you, right? So why would you deny that part? As silly as it sounds, try to beat your meat with purpose. Be mindful of the intentions behind the video. If you keep giving into your lizard brain that just wants to come quickly, just to feel something, if you keep supporting the big porn studios, if you keep supporting the creepy men that feel like the only way to get you off is to degrade women in more and more extreme ways, then you'll never break free. You'll forever be a dopamine slave. Being that dopamine slave is exactly why you keep experiencing the dreadfulness of post-nut clarity. When you're in the middle of a video, you're not thinking rationally. Your mind takes a back seat while you dig dust or driving. There's a sort of fog that only clears once you come, and that's when you realize what you're doing. You trick your mind into thinking that what you're doing is not all bad, but once you come, you suddenly realize what the poor girl in the video is going through, how much she's being humiliated just to satiate your pleasures. After doing the deed, you feel ashamed, you feel disgusted, and you want to clean up as soon as possible and maybe do some push-ups and get your life together. You're in the driver's seat again, and you realize that you're suddenly in the wrong lane and... Fuck off. Gotta post on Be Real. Gotta post on Be Real. Alright, back to the video. You're in the driver's seat again, but you realize that you're in the wrong lane and you're desperately trying to swerve the oncoming traffic and take back control of the vehicle. What causes this is the rise in dopamine levels while you're at it, taking you to a euphoric, almost dissociative state of mind. Again, you're a dick doing the driving. But once you bust, your dopamine levels plummet and you snap back into reality because of the rise in oxytocin. This is what leaves you with the feeling of shame, regret, depression, sometimes even anger, or in other words, post-nut clarity, or its more scientific term, postcoital dysphoria. If you keep clicking on the videos that give you a full load of post-nut clarity, pun very much intended, is that you don't let your dick do the driving. Try not to enter that dissociative state of mind and take control of the situation. Just be aware that the people in the video are real people. You don't need to feel ashamed of your urges, and you don't need to feel ashamed of satisfying them. Just do it respectfully. Next time you click on a video where the main selling point is the over-the-top sensationalism and degradation of women, be mindful and see it for what it is. Tell yourself, fuck it, I am using this to satisfy my urges. Once you let go of all the guilt and the shame, you will experience permanent post-nut clarity, and you'll maybe start using porn in a more healthy fashion. Maybe once you enter that state of mind, you'll be less inclined to watch those types of videos in the first place. Maybe you'll think more about the ethics behind a video before nutting. Maybe, just maybe, you'll come to the realization that this is not the type of content that you want to support. And I know I've gone on and on about not feeling shame for having desires and having these urges and masturbating, whatever. And I really mean it. But I don't want you to get it twisted.
I don't think you should never feel ashamed. Like, if you watch a video where you can tell that the actors are not enjoying the scene in the slightest, maybe that shame is a good thing. Again, the point I want to reiterate is mindfulness. If you already get an uneasy feeling just seeing the thumbnail of a video, but you ignore it and you tell yourself that you're embracing your animalistic side, then you're just fooling yourself and you're letting your dick do the driving again. Post-nut clarity will hit you like a motherfucker. If you experience negative emotions after watching a video, that post-nut clarity, try to think about why you're feeling this way. Learn from your experiences and try to grow from it. Stop being a dopamine slave and use porn the way that God intended, as a tool for sexual exploration. Post-nut clarity is something you're going to feel from time to time, and it's inevitable. Post-nut clarity is something you're going to feel from time to time. It's inevitable, and there is no such thing as permanent post-nut clarity. It is only after you start doing something with those post-nut feelings and reflecting on them that you can turn your toxic relationship with porn into a somewhat healthy one. And since we all consume porn on a regular basis, don't you think this is something worth fighting for? Thanks for watching.